What's up? How you doing? And welcome back. It's been far too long since we have gathered,
Way too long.
whether on a screen or at a table, to discuss some insanely good music. That's right. It's Whatchu Spinnin, episode 83. At long last ASAP, as the kids say. I'm your host, Dorian, joined with me, as always, by my homeboy, Matt, and my homeboy, Jake. Fellas, how are we doing?
It's good.
Awesome.
Life is
It's
good.
amazing, man. It's so good to be back. I missed you guys so much. I missed you guys.
It has been a while. It feels like forever since we met up and talked about music. And look at us. We're back now doing it remote like we do.
Hey, we started it and we're just going back to the foundation.
Going back to the basics.
Yep.
It's familiar. Hey, this is home. This is a home game for us now, baby. This is Autzen Stadium for us.
We could close our
Jake
eyes
and-
and do this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's all do that. Right
No matter how far, no matter how distant.
We still
Hell
will talk
yeah.
about music and celebrate all the joy that it brings us.
Absolutely. And to start things off in that regard, I'm sure everybody's already sick of it, but hey, we were a little behind, so we got to talk about it now. And plus, it's tradition. It's, past the holiday season. I'm in my stocking cap. Jake's got his tree still behind him. You can see my stockings. So let's go ahead and talk about Spotify Wrapped. Comes out at the beginning of every December. Shout out to him. And shout out the odds that all three of us happen to use Spotify, because it has been wildly beneficial to this podcast. So without further ado, let's get into our Spotify Wrapped. Tell us about your Spotify Wrapped, my boy.
Yes. So kind of surprising, some pretty obvious. My top artist was Obermano. Kind of surprising, but also not, just because I've been really into that genre and also that artist. I really like it. I brought it up, I don't know, a couple months ago with their album. Number 2 for artist was Billy Woods. No surprise there. Number 3, JPEG Mafia. I've really been listening to a lot of Peggy and his newest album, I Lay My Life For You. Phenomenal. Love that album. One of my favorite hip hop albums this year. The Alchemist. He's pretty much always in my top artists. And number 5, Freddie Gibbs. Been bumping Freddie Gibbs too. For songs, this is where I think the obvious comes out. Memory Box was number 1. Love that song. I feel like I should have a lot more Bismillah on here, especially Peter Cat as an artist. Number 2, Freedom 2. That's a song by Overmano. 3 was Floated By, another Peter Cat song. 4, Flight FM. And then number 5, Stay In It. So a lot of like dance, techno, and Bismillah. That whole album is. I'm sure if the list expands longer, that whole album would probably be on there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love those picks. I was almost surprised, and I was like, oh no, Jake's still on that kind of like housey kick. And then seeing JPEG in your top 3 did tickle me, and I'm glad that you specified that it was his newest album. I picked that up on vinyl while we were away. I'm surprised it hasn't lit on fire yet. I've been playing the shit out of that, both on my phone and on the vinyl. So, hell yeah, good top 5 tracks as well. Flight FM and Stay In It. Who did those tracks? Am I just forgetting?
Flight FM, that's Joy Orbison, also like a house dance, and Still In It is Fred Again.
Gotcha. I was like, one of those is Fred Again. I can't remember which one, but hell yeah. Solid Spotify Wrapped, 46 minutes listened, or 46,000 minutes listened, sorry. Impressive. But speaking of minutes listened, Matt's about to fucking embarrass the shit out of both you and I. Matt, go ahead and break it down for us one time.
Hey, it's not my fault. I get to listen to music all day at work. So I start my morning with ambient music to, ease my day or ease into my day. and then I roll with whatever comes next. But 103,000 minutes. Pretty silly. Top artist, Billy Woods for me was number 1. Obvious choice, still is. Number 2 was Slift. Played that album Uman a lot this year. Number 3 was Brian Eno, of course. Number 4, another ambient artist, Harold Budd. And then my last one was Crosses. Kind of went back to that album that Dorian brought up and fell back in love with it, and even opened the vinyl up and put it on the record player and spun it a few times.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
My top songs were all ambient too, pretty much. Yeah, they came off the Surround album by Hiroshi Yoshimura. I think I have 3 songs from that album in my top 5. And then I had a song by Billy Woods called Wharves that we reviewed. And then Uman was on there as well. So kind of been sticking to the same album a lot lately, even now. I don't know why. Just it's a comfort zone I have, and I usually get that album all inside me and then I move on. So that's what I did with those albums, and that's probably why they're there.
Hell yeah. Yours was particularly interesting to look at because Crosses, because sometimes, there'll be at least like any artist that is on your top 5, there'll be a song from it. Mm-hmm. Crosses, there wasn't. And then that Japanese album had, like you said, 3 songs off of it, but that guy did not show up on your top 5 artists. And that's like, the algorithm is fucking crazy to me. I was looking at yours, I was like, wait a minute. I was sitting there like going back and forth. So that was very interesting. Hell yeah. Love that. I love that Mr. Billy's in our top 3 for all of us. And I will go ahead and explain mine now. Number 1 artist for me was Deftones. No surprise there. Fell back in love with, White Pony. Really gave Around the Fur a good, solid digest. And then, of course, Diamond Eyes was probably the album I listened to the most this year. That's one thing that Apple Music does that I wish Spotify would do. Tell me what album I listened to the most. That would help me out so much, and that'd be perfect for this. But anyway, Deftones is number 1 artist. Super stoked about that. Going to see him in a month almost. So, shout out Deftones. Number 2, Grateful Dead. Again, this was almost a no-brainer. My summer of unemployment was ran ragged by fucking Deftones and Grateful Dead. And to be honest, I'm kind of letting the clock run out on the year and getting my fill of Deftones and Grateful Dead. So hopefully they won't dominate next year's Spotify Wrapped. But that will probably not happen. Number 3 for me was Billy Woods. I'll round out the top 3 of us having him in our top 3. Between going to the show, falling in love with Hiding Places, and Diabetic Test Strips, all that good stuff. Like, just throw a dart. There's a reason why Billy Woods is in either of our top 3s. Number 4 for me, Loathe. Between I Let It In, It Took Everything, that ambient album, and I kind of went back into some of their older stuff toward the end there. That was pretty cool to see that pop up because I listened to that album that we just reviewed last episode a shit ton this year. So no surprise there. And then number 5, was surprised it wasn't Floater, because that one was in my past, Floater was in my top 5 for 3 years almost. And number 5 this year, Ghostmain. Pretty excited to see that jump in there. Go way back in time to episode 2 of this podcast to see us talk about his album Noise. I got really into his back catalog with his album Black Mage in particular. Go check that out. But yeah, Ghostmain rounds out my top 5 artists. And then this is where it gets a little embarrassing, to be honest with you. My top songs, 3 of them are Deftones tracks. Number 1 being Sex Tape, which is only because of how much I listen to Diamond Eyes. Because I would just listen to it cover to cover. I didn't seek it out that much. Number 2, Fire on the Mountain from Cornell 77 by the Grateful Dead. It's a 17-minute track, but anytime I listen to it, I listen to the whole fucking thing. It is one of the best songs I've ever heard. Number 3, a song that we'll talk about here in a little bit, Chameleon by Herbie Hancock. This is what basically got me to play bass again and everything, was hearing this album. I'll go into that a little bit more in detail, but yeah, I listened to the shit out of Chameleon. Number 4, My Own Summer by Deftones. This summer was ruled by that song. I played it on guitar every day, so there's that. Number 5, Minerva by Deftones, off their self-titled album. Great song. again. Yeah. So that's my Spotify Wrapped.
I like
And-
how
oh,
like
My
you-
DJ plays that sex tape song every time it's spinning. Like it always goes to that song, and I'm like, come on, mix it up, DJ. You suck. Yeah. Anyways,
it's good. It's
a
good.
good
I don't
song.
blame DJ. I like how you made room for Grateful Dead, Dorian, because this year I feel like you've just like been hella crazy on Grateful Dead. I didn't remember you talking about it like last year or anything else. Like this year you kind of really like just fully embraced that and like the jam band sense. So that's cool. That's cool. I like
you
that.
even converted people, man. You were hella into it. I became a
You
fan.
did, yeah.
As a fan.
I've been converted, yeah.
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 Yeah, that was something that was, I mean, and that kind of ties back to that the playlist that got away, you know, the day list that I had that gave me Grateful Dead, Chameleon, uh, Machine Girl, like all of this crazy shit was in this one day list. And then Grateful Dead, you know, I just happened to like, my girlfriend's family comes from a huge line of Deadheads, like her aunt and uncle, like all this crazy shit is all like her whole life is just like Grateful Dead. There's like ties to it. And then, I mean, the people I was hanging out with Christian and the Truffle Jam band guys, like they got me into Fish a little bit. But yeah, I really hung on the Grateful Dead thing to where like last week I was texting Christian. I'm like, hey, I need a new live album. Like, what you got? Like, give me a good Dead show. So yeah, no, and it's been fun. Like that's why I'm like just gonna call my shot here. 2025, like Grateful Dead will probably be on my top 5 in some way, shape, or form. Just because I'm still getting into like the finding different shows, and you know I still have to read Phil Lesh's book. So yeah, but yeah, I'm super stoked that I got into it as well. It kind of opened up a lot for me. So shout out the Grateful Dead, dude. Fucking steal your face, man.
Leave my face.
Something I did want to shout out because we've had a lot of time since we last met up, and I feel like I've been listening to a lot of music since then. Different Type Time, Cavalier, that album, man. Oh my God.
That's good.
I read an article that was on Bandcamp about like the top hip hop albums of the year, and that was number one, was that album. And I'm like, oh well, I like Cavalier. We've been to his shows. Let me listen to that album. I am like one click away from ordering that on vinyl because it's so good, man. It's so good. The beats are so good. Everything about it so good. I wanted to shout it out. Also, this morning, listen to Sade. And besides that, kind of funny thing that I've also been getting into, there's this like album, 2003 Toyota Corolla. That I've been listening to.
Yes,
I saw it on your thing, Dorian. So I heard it and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I heard the whole thing and it was good.
I'm gonna check that out now, whatever that is.
Yeah.
if you go back to my ambient vibe playlist that I sent a while back, Matt, there's one song from there in it, and it's literally called like 2003 Toyota Corolla.
Sweet. Rad.
Hell yeah, Matt. Any music shout outs? What you been listening to?
Not much new. Been picking back up on some indie stuff. The Drums, their self-titled album's really fun. It's got a happy vibe, but the lyrics are really dark, but it's still like happy. That's pretty much it. Cigaros, been kind of diving back into their catalog. Kind of forgot about them as much as I love them. So, fun.
Isn't that always nice? What was that?
So that's about it. Yeah. Other than that, still Billy Woods is on my rotation every day. So
Hell yeah.
it's an obsessive thing. I don't know. He just flows in there. Even when the DJ comes on, that's what he starts with.
It is crazy. Like I've been kind of thinking about that because I've been, to piggyback on what you just said, and Jake, your first shout out, I have like, because I have one rap playlist that's like 2 days long because it's got me and 2 friends on it, and so it's just overloaded, but it's so packed that when you shuffle it you can't get to, like, if you let's say, like, for example, if you drive to work 5 days in a row and listen to this, you're going to end up hearing like 3 of the same songs like every single time you drive, no matter, like, that's just how this playlist is for some reason. So I wanted to make one that had like Billy Woods, Cavalier, because I was also listening to different type time, and I was like, so I wanted like Billy, Elucid, Cavalier, but also people that were just underground, just barely underground. So I was like, no Kendrick Lamar, no Future, like none of these guys that I love, no Biggie. And so I could never think of a name for it. So it's Thinkin' Rap, and it's got, I'll send it to you guys and you guys can help me out with it. But just within those parameters, I'm sure y'all can. So it's got like a couple, like 1 or 2 Saul tracks on there. Benny the Butcher's on there, Boldy James, West Side Gun, like, and then of course Billy, Lucid, and Cavalier. But yeah, so I've been really getting into like that type of thing, and then still kind of on my Aphex Twin kind of stuff, and then of course, like I said, still listening to the Dead a shit ton. I got a bunch of guitar stuff for Christmas, so it's just spiraling into that.
Nice. We've been listening to ambient works too, when like we'll smoke and play Minecraft. Ambient works too, it just comes on and it's like perfect. It's perfect.
Oh yeah.
Since we're wrapping up the year, I think one of my favorite albums, also shout out the new Jamie XX album. That album, really good. I was gonna go see him in LA in January, but it's a very good album in waves. If it takes Jamie XX 10 years to release albums and they're this good, like it's worth the wait for me. So I wanted to shout out the album too, In Waves by Jamie XX.
Hell yeah. Fine by me. And if I had to piggyback off that and shout out an album, I'll just go with the one that we've already mentioned twice. I've been thinking of it since we've been gone. I Lay Down My Life for You by JPEG Mafia might be like, it might be my favorite album of the year, to be quite honest with you. So I'll go ahead and shout that out, pick that as mine. Hell yeah. Matt, do you have a favorite album of the year you want to shout out from 2024?
That's tough. Probably if I had to choose right now, just spur the moment, Godspeed You Black Emperor's last album that came out. No title, as of February or something, blah, blah, blah. This is the album title. I think 6 or 7 tracks that all just lay out into essentially one long song. But their sound is very similar on a lot of their albums, but I think this one kind of changes the game a little bit, and it's a little bit more accessible, not as long, because those songs can be long, as we know.
Hell yeah. Motherfucker Redeemer being 30 minutes long.
Yeah. This song over yet?
Right.
We're home now. Yeah, we're home.
That's the funny thing, because it's like being into like getting into like the deeper ambient stuff, because I did steal a couple of like Godspeed songs for that playlist, and going from listening to that to like my Grateful Dead place, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just in for a 20-minute song no matter how I slice it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like hell yeah. Good pick. Let's go ahead and take a brief commercial break, and then we'll be right back to the regularly scheduled programming of Whatchu Spinnin' episode 83, a good one to close out the year 2024 on. We'll be right back. It's Whatchu Spinnin'. Okay, fellas, it's about that time to go back to what we do best, which is chatting about some of the greatest albums of all time, if you ask me. And to start things off, we're going to go with me, because I just kind of alluded to this album in the Spotify Wrapped little segment. One that I've been really, really waiting to bring up since about this time last year. I'm going with... Oh, shit, I don't have it.
Get your shit together, man. You rookie. I can't work with people like this anymore. I can't do it.
He takes a small break and he loses it.
No, I had it when I was setting up. Released in 1973, Herbie Hancock's Headhunters. His first album with his group, the Headhunters, also founded in 1973. Some good classic jazz fusion. What you guys think?
Go ahead, Jake. Give us a spin.
It gets a thumbs up from me. It's fucking gnarly, man. It's like the evolution of jazz, in a way, because when you think about it, this album came out like after the Stan Getz, after the Miles Davis, after Pete La Roca, like a lot of these albums that we've talked about before. And this is the same genre jazz, but just a whole nother light, like in a whole nother viewpoint. It's real funky, it's real fusion, it's like as pure as it gets to like just creativity in jazz. Because jazz in itself is already, kind of spontaneous and all over the place at points, but this is like so much more just crazy and out there. It has like electronic feels to it, some synths, some real bouncy, bendy guitars, the sax in it, everything, the drums. It's just like classic Herbie Hancock also. This is him just when he's done making, what was that, Empyrean Isles? This is just another stepping stone of that, just another evolution of what he can do. So yeah, it gets a fucking thumbs up for me for sure. It's good.
Yeah, this album's so funky. It's got like the jazz, the deformed cousin of jazz funk. It's got that kind of vibe to it, and it's all over the place. But musically, it's impressive, and Herbie Hancock's great at what he does. And this album showcases all that in one. Even with Chameleon starting it off, you just get that move-in vibe. That's what I'm listening to right now. And it gets the whole album starting, and from that, it's just like boom, 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 and it's so short. It's like I was hoping for a little bit more, and I think each song does a good representation of what they were trying to do on this album. And I guess that the instruments that they used a clavinet, which I've never seen before in person, but it's kind of like a keyboard setup. And so that's a lot of the sound on the album is from that. So I guess they didn't use much guitar or any at all, which is weird because it sounds like they're using guitars. It sounds twangy a little bit, but it's a clavinet. So, but fun album. Thanks for bringing it up. I'd listened to it before a long time ago, but it was nice to come back to it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I figured it would be one of those, like, if you haven't heard, you've either heard it or haven't. And if you have heard it, it's been a long time. But yeah, Herbie Hancock just shredding on the clavinet. This album turned 50 years old a couple of years back, and they did a Hollywood Bowl concert over the summer, like while I was in Utah. And so on the drive back, there were all these videos coming out of 84-year-old Herbie Hancock out there with his keytar-looking clavinet, just shredding and like doing jam band stuff, like literally. It was almost tongue-in-cheek because he's doing what a bunch of stoners in the Midwest do with his song, which is turn it into a jam band track, and he's doing that with most of the original Headhunters. So yeah, just timeless album. Chameleon is a jazz standard. I've heard it at multiple concert band shows that I had gone to back when I was in high school, and I jam Chameleon with my buddies all the time, and it's just the work on it is unreal. Whether it's the clavinet or you look at the drumming on it, it's also very impressive. Paul Jackson's bass work is out of this world. I think, in my opinion, it's as good of a Herbie Hancock showing that it's one of the best bass playing albums of all time. On all 4 tracks, in my opinion. So hell yeah, I'm glad that you guys liked it. It is very short, so not a lot to really go off of, but it's kind of crazy because on the record, Chameleon and Watermelon Man are one side, and then you flip it and it's Sly and Vein Melter, and it's almost fitting because if you split the album in half like that, it is very vastly different, which kind of always keeps me coming back to it. Is like, oh man, I got to hear that change from Watermelon into Sly. Like, it's just crazy. So
the Watermelon Man's crazy too, because at first you hear the start of the song, you're like, okay, am I going to be able to keep going with the song? But as those drums kick in, it just flows so well together. I love that song. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. And I guess Sly was dedicated to Sly and the Family Stone. Sly. That's kind of cool.
Hmm. Cool. But yeah, with the bottle flute you hear in the Watermelon Man, like it's it's iconic. You hear that and you know exactly what song it is doing. You know exactly what you're getting into. Sly that has like kind of like a spy movie feel to it, and then it just gets crazy in the middle with funky ass bass. It's like textbook 70s stuff, like what's going on. Like it's experimental, just out there, just crazy. Um, and but it's just all killer, no filler. For only having 4 tracks on an album, each song being like 8 minutes long, fucking Chameleon's like 10 minutes long. Like it's it's spot on for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you could really just play any of these songs and just go for a whole journey. Like every song on this is so intricate, so thought out. Each member has their own like part in it. They'll have like a 2 3 minute break. Yeah, man, it's just iconic jazz, and like what better way to get introduced to like a jazz group like Headhunters than this? Like this is perfect. Like they had, I think they did the album before this with Herbie Hancock that they were also the same Headhunter members, but this is like actually what like they were like, hey, we should, form a group, make an actual band, and they did.
Mhm.
They went on to do Headhunters. They have a couple other albums that they've done, so it just melded perfectly. Like all them coming together for this album, it was spot on.
Yeah, and then to think about, like, to go off of what you were saying about like the group in itself, that album that I keep mentioning whenever we talk about like what are you searching for on vinyl is Thrust, which is the album that came out the year after this, which is like almost comparable. It's not as iconic, but the musicianship on it does hold a candle to this because it's so fresh right off of it. It's like it almost makes you wonder if you listen to this and then you go listen to Thrust, which I implore you that you do. Um, it's you almost wonder like why didn't he just make an 8-track album? Because I think Thrust is like 4 or 5 songs also, but they're also one's like 16 minutes long, So,
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, Watermelon Man starting out, that's what got me back to listen to this album as a whole. I wasn't too familiar with Chameleon. I had just heard the song a shit ton. And then I heard Watermelon Man like a year and a half ago, and I was like, oh man. And then I was like, let me listen to this whole album because, I love Herbie Hancock. And I was like, oh no shit, this is where Chameleon came from. And then the other 2 songs are just as good. I read a whole Reddit thread today of someone that hated the song Vein Melter, and I was like, you're an idiot. I was like,
Melt your veins, buddy.
exactly. which has to be a heroin reference, by the way. Vein Melter. I mean, come on, it has to be a reference to
the
shoot
70s.
melt.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, come on now. But yeah, to have this, it's like why I'm this episode, like the albums on it, I'm really stoked about because we're going to talk about one with Matt's album that came out a year prior, and it's like people were getting super experimental in the early 70s. We talked about, again, we'll bring him up again, Europe 72. That album is also another one to really look at. It's just that early 70s stuff, man. We talk about how great the 90s were and everything, but like the 70s, it's like they crawled so that all of these other things could walk, essentially. And this is a huge showing of that, because this album ended up influencing stuff that was going on at its time already. Like there were established groups that heard this and they're like, oh yeah, no, we should definitely change whatever we're doing. Like throw this out. Like so hell yeah, shout out Herbie and the Head Hunters. I'm glad that you guys liked it. If we don't have any further arguments, we can go ahead and top 4 it up.
Let's do it.
Hell yeah. Okay. Honorable mention for me is Sly. Love that song. Jake, you're exactly right. It does have a very spy movie-esque kind of build to it, which I did really enjoy. Number 3 for me, Vein Melter. I love that slow build that it has with just the woodwind and the Rhodes piano. Number 2 for me, Chameleon. Though my Spotify Wrapped would have you believe otherwise. The number 1, Watermelon Man. I think that bass part's cooler than the one on Chameleon, man. That fucking boom, boom, boom. It's just warms my heart every time I hear it, man. I put this record on And then I just immediately was like, all right, well, I'm going to blast this so I can hear it while I play my bass. And I just was like playing along to it, man. This album fucking rules. Shout out Herb and the Heads.
Yes. I like how in this episode we have something in 73 and then in 72 with Can that literally came out like 3 months before. And it made me think back on previous jazz albums that we've brought up. Hiro Nagaki, the album came out in 75. And it sounds similar to this, like around in the same, very funky, very jazzy. So I could definitely see how this had such an influence to not only what was going on at the time here, but everywhere, all over the world. If anyone got their hands on this and heard it, it was definitely changing their musical viewpoint. So honorable mention for me, Watermelon Man. This album and that song is not a bad song. It just has that, I guess, crush that it's 4 songs long. So one of them is going to be left out. It's another case of Godspeed album. Watermelon Man, but it's fantastic. Number 3, Vein Melter. Really like that one. Slowest song on the album, but don't count it out. It's really good. Number 2, Sly. And then my favorite was Chameleon. It's a banger of an intro to an album. It's a masterclass for what it is. It's great.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah.
My honorable mention was Chameleon. Again, like you guys have said, it's a great way to start off an album. Love that song. Number 3, Watermelon Man, just because of the funky intro and then how well it takes off from there. Number 2, Sly, and then top track was Vein Melter, because I like to melt my veins. My vein melt. Sounds like a bad hair metal band. Vein Melter! Live in Burbank, California.
Opening for Steel Panther.
Yes. There we go.
Horrific. Okay. Well, that was 1973's Headhunters by Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters. My album for this wonderful episode 83 of Whatchu Spinnin'. We'll be right back to dive into one from just, as Jake said, about 3 months prior with Matt's pick. It's Whatchu Spinnin'. Stick around. Okay, it's time to move on, not very far or behind or backwards in time to talk about Matt's pick for this week. One I am very stoked to talk about myself. Matt, what you got for us?
Going back, like you said, not too far, 1972, a band called Can. The album is, I'm not going to pronounce it very well, Ege Bamyasi. That's probably not the way you pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to do it, so deal with it. This band just kind of came onto me randomly. Like, I didn't go out seeking this band or look for them at all. I don't even remember how I found them. I just stumbled upon them. I think playing a playlist when I worked at the dispensary, Vitamin C would come on when I had a Brian Eno mix on. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a cool song. And so I kind of dove into the catalog from there. But this album is so experimental, like you were saying before we talked about it. What a year for music, and what a decade for music, especially in the early 70s with everybody trying new things and using new instruments to make their sounds and not caring as much as what the public wanted to hear. It's about what they were wanting to do themselves and the music they wanted to make. And Can, I think, is a good representation of that because they don't really fit into any form of music. I mean, you can call it jam band, you can call it experimental, you can call it avant-garde, whatever that means. But I think they just kind of set themselves apart by nobody really sounds like them. You can kind of compare them to a jam band, but in a sense, they're their own unique thing. And a lot of people were inspired by them. We hear Kanye likes one of their, what was it, Sing Song Swan or?
Yeah, Sing Swan Song was
Sing
used.
Swan Song, yeah.
Yeah, it was sampled on what is arguably his worst song in his discography, Drunken Hot
Throwaway
Girls.
track. The throwaway track. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talked about that song. It's the worst.
Hating on that song. Yeah, we were hating on that. I didn't realize that until we started reviewing this album. I was like, oh, this is terrible, but it's there. But anyways, what did you guys think of the album in general? Besides that little.
Besides that and the terrible spinoff that came with it, it's awesome, man. It's fantastic. I'm kind of in the same boat, Matt. I heard Vitamin C off of this album, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, cool name, funny band name. They got a little can on their album logo, so I'm like, cool. But kind of getting into the whole thing, the whole album, kind of a lot of backstory and a lot of like praise for this album. It has a lot of influence that it pulled and drew from other artists, like Kanye, Brian Eno. He took also a lot of love for this album. So a lot of countless artists have kind of cited this and came back to this as a influential album. So that's cool. And for something, piggybacking on what you said, also the 70s was such a experimental time that you could stumble upon a band out in Germany making songs like this, and they're pulling it off perfectly. So very influential, very good. For it being also a relatively short album, it also fills the space that it does, that it's allotted to, very well, and it's amazing. I like how what was it, Soup? It was apparently too short, so they were like, let's just freestyle it. Let's just go off and record and no edits, and if it's good, and we'll pull it out. And they did. They just, there's some random like distortion and like vocals in the background when they were making it, but they just put it out to put it out. They, weren't influenced by media or, production or anything telling them not to. They just did it as artists, just doing it, wanting to fill some room in it. So it's cool that a band can do that, kind of make their own funnel of how they want their music to sound.
Hell yeah. Very good points. It almost seemed like I was doing a brief read on it today, and it almost seemed like they weren't anticipating how popular it was going to be, or like it sounded like as they were putting these like little tidbits out, people were really responding to them, and they were like, oh fuck, like, yeah, we got to go back in, hold on, we got to finish this album, because it felt like people were just like, give us more these crazies out in Germany. And it's one of those that like I recognized the album cover, and it was one of those I'm like, yeah, that's an album that exists, and it's funny because of the can on it and their name's Can, like, haha. I never listened to it, but I had seen it in the record stores and all that stuff, and my God, man, there is a lot going on. Like, I mean, obviously we talked about Kanye and his like whatever that he pulled from it, but like you got Portishead, Sonic Youth, like the Eno, like the people that cite this album as a huge inspiration. The list goes on, and it's quite an impressive list. And then you hear it and you're like, holy shit, no wonder. But then you're also like, how the hell, like with the stuff that like we listen to and that we've covered, I'm like, how is this just not stumbled? How have I not stumbled onto this yet? Like, this is mass. Like, this should have been so much more popular or whatever. But it's like, people that knew this album, they were like, yeah, this is what's up. Like, they were about it. And looking at it, like the singer of this group was only like 22, and it's like when this album came out, and so it's just like, Jesus, man, like they really and there's like, because it's like labeled as krautrock or whatever, which was like a huge umbrella term that was invented, but there is a lot going on with it musically. It sounds huge at times, and I felt like I'm like, how is there not 80 people in this band? Like, it just sounds so massive. And then it's like, oh, it was recorded in a theater. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's damn near a live album. Like, So I love it. I love this album.
Yeah. All good musicians. They came off this album. Tago Mago was before this album, which is another great improv, huge album. Almost brought up that one before this one, but I felt this one was more accessible. But I think them being such good musicians makes it more accessible for us to listen to and not get like, what is going on? Because they're all really good at what they do. The vocal's not very apparent, but I think he does good at what he does. He's just doing his thing.
I've heard a lot about that album before, Tagomago. Hearing like the first song on the album, Pinch, it gave me like exactly that, like a jam band. I was like, okay, they're playing these long songs, kind of sounds like improv, sounds like they're going off, and then they have like a melodic songs with Sing Swan Song, and I like at first hearing it, I like sure it's an okay song, it's not terrible, but you do see song structure, you see the structure, the lyrics on it. One More Night kind of is where they really start, I feel like, feeling the groove of the album and polishing it up more. And then you get the hit singles like Vitamin C, like I'm So Green. So for the most part, it's pretty structured well, and they were pulling it off, good also. Yeah, I like everything that's kind of gone into it. And I mean, you can't not laugh at that album cover when you see it. It's just a can of fucking, yeah, it's good.
Okra, yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah. Just to kind of piggyback on that, like one more night is like, I kind of agree. It is where, really like they kind of find their groove with it, as you said. And I like that song in particular. It is in my top 3, but just, I don't know why, but it's probably the most unique song on the album outside of, what is it, Spoon, that's just like crazy, like whatever the craziness. But in my opinion, it's the most unique because like the vocalist is just like doing the like almost doing an Adam Sandler like like fucking just over this like really like toned down like almost samba type thing. It had like a very like Barcelona Nights kind of vibe to it, and I really liked that. I was like, oh shit, like this is the most unique. And then every song after that is just like awesome, incredible, badass. Like it's like, oh shit, like the most unique, like I said, the most unique song kind of kicks off like the best swing of the album. And so I thought that was really unique and really cool. So shout out.
Yeah, Spoon sounds like it was started on a Casio keyboard or something, like bossa nova sounds. What's going on here? And then it kicks into madness, but you're like, wow, you could just do anything back in the early 70s, have fun.
Oh yeah.
That's what they're doing, I think. It's a fun album. I think at the end they had to kind of scrap this album together. I don't think they had all the tracks ready to go at once. And it was like either days before the album was finished, but they came together and I think did at least 6 songs to finish the album. So, it's a lot of work. For being rushed in a sense, it doesn't sound like it. But kind of a unique band, fun to listen to. Got that kind of dance Grateful Dead vibe to them a little bit. Glad you guys like the album.
Yeah, it was definitely unique, but it is, as you said, it's a fun listen, and it's like you might not be able to listen to it and be like, oh, I remember this song from a certain point, but it has like a certain like almost familiarity to it that, as you said, like Tagomago, I listened to that album when you showed me one song off of it, and I agree this is more accessible, and so it's like shout out to you for like pulling it off that way. I can't wait until you bring up Tagomago. But yeah, it does have like an odd sort of like familiarity to it that kind of kept me coming back to it. I was like, I was trying to hope that I would listen to Vitamin C so many times that it would unlock when I first heard it. Cause I was like, I swear to God, I've heard this before, man. Just listen to it 100 times and it'll come to you. It never did. But yeah, shout out.
That's right. Well, cool. We can dive into the top 3s.
Hit me.
All right. Honorable mention for me is a start off track with Pinch to kind of let you know what the album's about, that whole style they're doing. Number 3, Sing Swan Song, just because of the slowdown kind of in there. Number 2 is Spoon because of the chaos, the madness, and that is kind of what Can is at times. A good jam band, but doing it precisely and doing it in time. And then number 1, just because it's the first song I heard by them, and it's the catchiest song, in my opinion. And I can keep going back to it and never get sick of it. It's Vitamin C.
Hell yeah. I will go next, just for familiarity's sake. First honorable mention for me is Pinch. Hell of a way to start off the album. Second honorable mention for me is Spoon. Matt, you summed it up perfectly. That's a great fucking song. Number 3, I'm So Green. It was kind of like I liked its placement in the album. That was pretty nice. Number 2, just gave it some love. One More Night. Loved that. It is one of the two that I really came back to. And the number one, like Matt said, Vitamin C. In my opinion, the strongest song on this album. I just love that the intro to it and just like the desperation vocals. It's just top to bottom, hell of a track. So yeah.
Nice. Honorable mention, Vitamin C. That's the first song I heard off of it. And yeah, if there's a song to listen to on this album, it's probably that one. Number 3 is Soup. I like that backstory where they just said, fuck it, and hit record and don't stop until we think we're ready. So Soup is my number 3. Number 2, I'm So Green. And then my favorite track was One More Night. I really think that one kind of held the album together.
Hell yeah. Great stuff. Great pick, Matt. Loved it. Immediately, as soon as I listened to it once, I was like, download it and keep an eye out for next time you're at the record. Keep an eye out. See if you can find that motherfucker, because it's a damn good album. And that album being Ege Bamyasi by Can, released in 1972, which was my buddy Matt's pick for this beautiful episode 83 of Whatchu Spinnin. We're going to hop in the time machine and go all the way to 2015 with my other buddy Jake's pick for this week. It's Whatchu Spinnin episode 83. Go ahead and stick around for me. All right, it's time for the third chapter today, which we're going to put a big fat bow on this thing and wrap it up with my buddy Matt, or my buddy Jake's pick. What do you got for us?
Yes, so 2015, HOMESHAKE, Midnight Snack. That is HOMESHAKE. Came out in 2015. I stumbled upon this originally a couple years back when I was like heavy listening to indie music. So like The Beth, Mac DeMarco, that realm. This came up, I don't know if on shuffle or something, but a song off of this album came up, and it was Love Is Only a Feeling. And I thought, oh, cool, I like this song, and it sounded kind of familiar. And I was like, let me go back into it, let me listen to the album, and kind of how I got into it, how I started listening to it, and then all his other projects that he's done. It's kind of like a indie dream pop genre, you could say. Kind of cool. Initially, I heard about him through Mac DeMarco, and I guess he actually played with Mac DeMarco at some points early on in his career. So I thought that was pretty cool. It came back like full circle. But yeah, his second album that he came out with, it's like a good, easy listening background music to have. It's like very synthy, like lo-fi vocals. The longer album of this episode, as far as track number of tracks, but it's also still the shortest. It's only 33 minutes at like 12 tracks. So yeah, what did you guys think about it?
Yeah, this was certainly a good listen. And it's funny, I was like, you know what would be perfect to bring up after this? This reminds me a lot of Mac DeMarco. I'm going to go ahead and bring up Salad Days next episode. And then I looked it up and I was like, okay, no, we can't do that, because that's basically, I was like, it's basically the same thing. Yeah. But you can definitely see like that kind of influence, and it makes sense that he played with him at one point. But I really like him kind of branching off and doing his own thing, and to hear that this is just him on this. You look at the artist credits on it, and it's just good old HOMESHAKE, and I love that. And to call it Midnight Snack and everything, and it's got like everything just makes sense with it. The album cover being a huge nod to the book Goodnight Moon is right on the nose, right with it just matches the sound of the album, and HOMESHAKE, the name, it's just, it all makes too much sense. But that that's not to say that the music gets lost in that. The music is top notch. It's killer. I love how I almost felt like I was getting fucked with because it's like heat, he's heating up, and then just like I was like, is it just gonna be all fire references? So yeah, just I love it. I love this album. I kept coming back to it. Made me think of a lot of other stuff that we've covered, and just it had a, with kind of the weather getting really, really cold and wet and shitty. I was listening to this a lot, and I was just like, yeah, this matches what's going on right now a lot. So I liked it a lot. I liked this album a lot.
Yeah, like you said, that transition from heat to it's heating up is so clever. It works really well. And this whole album, it just makes me feel like I'm in a dream and floating around in a sense. They got very subtle R&B breaks with like different guitar twanginess, and it works really well. I like his vocal because it's clear and precise, and I kept going back to Heat and just vibing to that song, and it's almost danceable. But there's so many good tracks on this album, and I've never heard him before. It was great to get some new exposure. That's something I hadn't heard, and really dig this album. It was fun to listen.
Hell yeah, nice. I'm glad that you guys liked it. It's cool, like seeing the progression of someone working with a band and then just wanting to do their own thing. And all he had was a drum machine, just a drum machine laying down the drum beat, and he would play his guitar behind it and put his vocals behind it, and he made an album. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of gives me like inspiration to want to try to fuck around, do my own music, because it's if it can be that easy, you can try it out, give it a shot. So it's cool. It being his second album, you can hear the progression from, I think his first album's called In the Shower or something shower. It's similar, but it's like he's still kind of finding his own groove to it. So yeah, it's a pretty good listen. Kind of cool that when I heard this, I don't think it was around at the time, but Joey Badass did a song called Love Is Only the Feeling that he samples that song. So I thought that was cool. I was like, hey, it's like two of my like favorite artists coming together and doing the same thing. So also kind of cool not seeing that.
Hell yeah. I did not know about that. I'll have to check that out. That's awesome.
It's a good song.
Yeah, and it came out at a perfect time, 2015. That was like, at least for me, I was getting into salad days and stuff. So it was that time, like 2015. It's like, I think I've said it a couple times on here, but like 2011 to 2017 was like indie's heyday. That was like the indie dream pop like phenomenon happened and then just kind of fizzled out. And it's kind of making its way back. You can kind of see the trajectory of it coming back with some of the stuff that's getting popular now. But yeah, I wish I would have heard this back then, because it is, again, like I said, it's right in the wheelhouse of a bunch of stuff that I was getting into at the time. But yeah, Love Is Only a Feeling. Man, I'm hold on, I gotta jot that down. Fucking J Badass. Okay, cool. But yeah, man, thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. But it flows. It's like it is funny that it has, out of all the albums that we're covering today, it has the most songs, but it is the shortest, because that is something kind of that I picked up on when listening to it. Is it's like it just hammers through these songs before, and I'm like, man, if some of these, that's like maybe a complaint I could have, but it's not. Like, I'm not bitching about it. I'm like, man, I was like just starting to like that song, and then it cuts off, and it's almost like a clever way to execute the album, to have every song be like, just gonna tease you and then bring you right into the next thing. It's really forces you to listen to the album in its entirety every time you go to listen to a song, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I'm just breezing through real quick, looking at his other releases that he's done. This is mainly, it's just him. It's just him. He really doesn't have any other features. There might be other people that help him, give him like production tips or whatever, but it's really mainly just him. just him producing, him writing, him playing. So it's like it's very individualized for what he is, and it's a good listen. The album flows pretty good. I feel like it has a stronger second half for the album. Songs like "Move This Body" that has that like bouncy synths on it. Midnight Snack, love that song. It has that dreamy, like flowy guitars on it. And then it just ends with Good Night. It just wraps up the album perfectly. So yeah, it has like a very homey feel to it. Like I hear this and I just kind of feel at home. Like I feel like relaxing and, drinking tea and snuggling up with a blanket with a book or something. It's good. I like it.
I agree. It does definitely have that vibe to it. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm gonna have to look for this one too. You son of a bitch! You guys got to stop bringing stuff up that makes me want to buy shit.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely go check out his other work. Fresher is good too. But yeah. And no other thoughts. We can go into top trays.
Trade up.
Top threes. Honorable mention, Move This Body. I love that, the synthiness on there. Feels very dreamy. Number 3, He's Heating Up. Kind of a good actual first song to the album. With it transitioning from Heat, it's great. I Don't Wanna. I hear that like bendy guitar on it. And then my favorite track, Midnight Snack. It's such a good song just to have playing at any point. I could be driving at work to it. I could be winding down for the day. It's a good one to listen to.
Hell yeah. I'll go next. Honorable mention for me, Move This Body. Great song. Kind of liked the female vocal on it, quote unquote. It kind of made me chuckle a little bit, but also just a really well composed song. Second honorable mention for me is Heat. A little short, sweet, as you said. It's kind of in this like non-song category to start off the album, Jake. And then number 3 was Give It to Me. Just that chorus was really nice. Number 2 for me, Love Is Only a Feeling. Really liked that song. Really looking forward to seeing how that was sampled. And then number 1 for me was He's Heating Up. Just it had like a certain like kind of bop to it, it had a really nice like rhythm that you could just clue into and just kind of rock with. And the production on it was really nice. So yeah, He's Heating Up, my number 1.
Nice. Honorable mention for me was Heat. Love that song. Great track. Number 3, I like Faded. It's got kind of a subtle vocal and just kind of mellow all around. Number 2, the title track, Midnight Snack, was great. And my favorite was Give It to Me. Same thing. It's got that vocal that just reminds you. It's like it just gets in your head. You can't get it out. So great pick. I love this album. Really fun to listen to. Thank you.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Good shit, Jake. Way to bring up a banger. That was 2015's Midnight Snack by the artist HOMESHAKE, which was Jake's pick for this week. Hell of an album, hell of a listen. Go ahead and pick it up or listen to it, whichever you prefer. I say gamble. Go to a record store and buy it, and then just throw it on. See if you like it or not. But yeah, let's go ahead and truly put a big fat bow on this with everybody's favorite portion of every episode. What the hell are you going to be spinning for the next 2 weeks? It's What You Spin in episode 83. Go ahead and stick around for me. All right. Well, it's time to put an end to this wonderful reunion episode. It's been so much fun. I'm glad that we get to talk again about music, and hopefully we don't have to wait so long in between. But yeah, it's time to let people know what's coming for next episode, and we go in the order that we shared our albums today, which means I'm up first. This is an album that, sometimes you just got to do what the episode says. What have you been spinning? What have you been listening to? And this is one I've been sitting on for a bit. I had to buy it for myself for a birthday gift. It's a Tread by Ross from Friends. This is one that I found while going down the ambient rabbit hole. It's some good, just electronic music. You guys will like it. Don't worry. But yeah, Tread, Ross from Friends. I think it came out in 2021. So
Love that band name. Heck yeah. And I'm excited to listen to that album. That'll be fun.
yeah.
I'm gonna be generic and go off of my Spotify best of, and kind of round out this artist. Probably be my last pick from him, but it's a collaboration with More Mother and Billy Woods called Brass. I do not own this album because it's wicked expensive. It's called Brass. More Mother. That's more prominent on the album for sure. So
Hell yeah.
I was about to freak out, man. I thought you were gonna whip it out from under the desk and you had a copy of it. I was like, no way.
no.
That's a good one. That's a good one, though. I'm excited for that one. I am kind of going in the same vein. I've been listening to this a lot. I haven't spun it on the turntable in a while, so I think it's about time I dust it off. That's Zay. I'm doing Isaiah Rashad. Sunset.
Holy shit.
In 2016.
Nice. That's rad.
God damn, dude. Brass and Sons Tirade. Jesus.
Yeah.
I was listening to Brass the other day. Oh, man.
Nice.
Brass is a hell of an album. I love Tread, obviously. And then fucking, dude, Sons Tirade, that was the first time I saw him on that tour. That's fucking sick.
It's a good way to usher in the new year.
I believe so. Yeah. Fucking that album's 8 years old. Shut up, man. That's fucking stupid. Okay. Anyway, hell yeah. Well, this has been Whatchu Spinnin' episode 83. Please, for the love of God, tune into Whatchu Spinnin' episode 84 because that's going to be an absolute heat-a-thon. We've got Brass by More Mother and Billy Woods, Tread by Ross from Friends, and fucking The Sun's Tirade by Isaiah Rashad. Some great features on that album too. Heck yeah. Well, that'll do it for us. I'm Dorian. That's Matt. And that's Jacob. This is Whatchu Spinnin'. Go ahead and stick around or catch us next time. Listen to some great music. Go support your local record store. Support your local artist. Eat at a local restaurant. Or listen to a good record and have a good home-cooked meal. And maybe call yourself HOMESHAKE while you're at it. We'll catch you next time. Peace.